Max Verstappen is not happy at all about his new teammate being Yuki Tsunoda from Japan onward. But it's not for the reasons you might think. The Dutchman has raised concerns, not about Tsunoda's talent, but about whether this move could actually backfire on Red Bull. Could this decision ultimately ruin Tsunoda's career and put Red Bull in yet another crisis with their second seat? With arguments flying on both sides, the question remains: is Red Bull making the right move, or are they completely clueless when it comes to choosing a driver to pair with Verstappen? And more importantly, if Tsunoda fails, who steps in next? The situation at Red Bull has been shifting rapidly over the past few days, especially in the aftermath of the Chinese Grand Prix. Liam Lawson's underwhelming weekend, qualifying P20 and failing to score points even with 3 drivers ahead of him being disqualified, seems to have pushed Red Bull to its breaking point. In a shocking turn of events, the decision was made not at their Milton Keynes headquarters, but in a closed-door meeting in Dubai. The outcome? A driver swap. Tsunoda in, Lawson out, effective immediately from the Japanese Grand Prix onward. Red Bull has yet to confirm it officially, but their silence speaks louder than words. No one at Red Bull has stepped up to deny these strong rumors, and that alone suggests there's truth to them. The real concern now isn't the swap itself, it's Verstappen's reaction. Max is clearly the #1 driver in Formula One right now, but his frustration isn't about who's sitting next to him. His main worry is that Red Bull is too focused on filling the second seat rather than fixing the real problem: the car. The RB21 has been an unpredictable beast, difficult to tame, and, perhaps most concerning, not as dominant as Red Bull would like. The gap between them and McLaren is shrinking fast. Verstappen fears that Tsunoda is stepping into the exact same trap that Lawson did. The issue isn't just about a driver's ability to adapt, it's that the car itself is fundamentally flawed. The RB21 is a completely different challenge compared to the Racing Bulls machine that Tsunoda has gotten comfortable with. If Yuki struggles, will it be because he isn't good enough, or because the car is holding him back? Red Bull might be setting him up for failure before he even gets a fair shot. This pressure on Tsunoda is enormous. He's openly stated that he's 100% ready for a Red Bull seat, and now he'll have to prove it immediately. But Verstappen has made it clear. Dropping Lawson after just 2 races was a brutal move, and if Tsunoda suffers the same fate, it'll confirm a growing problem within Red Bull. The fact is, Lawson and Tsunoda were closely matched last season at Racing Bulls, so why would one struggle more than the other? Verstappen even hinted that Lawson might have actually performed better in the Racing Bulls car than in the RB21, saying, "The Racing Bulls car is easier to drive than ours." If you look at other teams, their 2 drivers are much closer together in performance. I also talked to Liam last year, and I didn't think the difference between him and Yuki was that big. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put him in a Red Bull to begin with. This wasn't a statement that Red Bull's management, especially Helmut Marko and Christian Horner, wanted to hear. But it raises a legitimate concern. Is Red Bull's second seat doomed to failure because the car is simply too tailored to Verstappen's driving style? Regardless of who's right, one thing is certain. If Tsunoda doesn't deliver immediately, Red Bull will have no easy backup plan. Their options are limited. The only real alternative would be to promote Isaac Hadjar, but with the least experience of all potential candidates, that move would be even riskier. Tsunoda was originally aiming for a seat with Cadillac in 2026, having felt sidelined by Red Bull in previous seasons. But now that he's finally getting his big break, this could either be the start of something great or the beginning of the end for him. If he can perform at Verstappen's level, or at least close, he secures his place in Red Bull's future. But if he struggles, he's not just risking his Red Bull career. He could also lose his potential shot at Cadillac, a team with a growing list of candidates, including Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, who are eager to bring their experience to the American outfit. For Tsunoda, this is a make-or-break moment. He has one shot to prove he belongs in a top team, and unfortunately for him, He has to do it in one of the most high-pressure, cutthroat environments in Formula One. Red Bull has a history of discarding drivers who don't meet expectations. Lawson is just the latest example. Let's break down just how unfair Lawson's brief Red Bull tenure really was. He was given only 2 races to prove himself, the shortest stint of any Red Bull driver in history. One of those races was a sprint weekend, limiting his practice time, and the other was in wet conditions, his first time driving in those circumstances in F1. Yet, despite these factors, Red Bull deemed his performance unacceptable. Yes, qualifying P20 in China twice was far from ideal, but considering the context, was it really a fair evaluation? That's the exact concern Verstappen has for Tsunoda. He sees Tsunoda as a solid talent, someone who did everything expected of him in racing bulls. In Australia, Yuki matched the best ever qualifying result for a Red Bull sister team since Carlos Sainz's P5 for Toro Rosso back in 2016. But as Verstappen pointed out, Racing Bulls' car is simply easier to drive. The RB21 is unpredictable, aggressive, and tailored to Verstappen's extreme driving preferences. According to a report from F1 Insider, Verstappen has been pushing Red Bull's engineers to build a more well-balanced car, one that other drivers can handle as well, not just him. Despite Max loving an ultra-sensitive front end, he acknowledges that if Red Bull wants long-term success, they can't rely on just one driver's ability to extract performance. But here's where it gets really interesting. Red Bull has made a rare move by ignoring Verstappen's opinion on this one. Could this be a sign that the team is preparing for a future beyond Max? It's no secret that Verstappen's camp, especially his father, Jos Verstappen, has been hinting that Red Bull's current internal chaos could push Max toward Mercedes. Red Bull choosing to override his concerns and place Tsunoda in the seat might be their way of proving they won't be held hostage by one driver's preferences, no matter how dominant he is. Tsunoda now has the biggest opportunity of his career, but it won't be easy. His first race in the RB21 will be at his home Grand Prix in Japan, a place where the pressure on him will be even higher. But here's the catch. He has never driven a lap in the RB21. While he spent time in the RB20 during last year's postseason tire test, this year's car is a whole different challenge. And this brings us to the bigger picture, Red Bull's driver development program. Have they lost their way? Instead of developing talent properly, they're rushing drivers into seats and discarding them just as quickly. They promoted Lawson after just 11 F1 races, citing his DTM and Super Formula experience, but then never gave him a real shot at proving himself in Suzuka, one of the tracks he knows best. Now, Tsunoda faces the same ruthless environment. As former Aston Martin F1 engineer Bernie Collins pointed out, Red Bull should have been more strategic. They should have tested all their young drivers in an old Red Bull car and seen who adapts best. The RB21 is very different from the Racing Bulls car. You don't just throw a driver in and expect them to succeed. So, is Tsunoda about to ruin his Red Bull career and kill his Cadillac chances in the process? More importantly, is this yet another sign that Red Bull has no real long-term plan beyond Verstappen? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to check out the next video appearing on your screen right now.